All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Kristen Cambenzi,
Here.
Jennifer Ray, Jason Zadunik,
Here.
Jennifer Klipp,
Here.
Cheryl Maddox-Smith,
Here.
Cassidy Thomas,
Here.
Eric Smith,
Here.
Okay, and I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I will make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Zedidnik, support by Mrs. Klipp. All those in favor? Aye. Moving on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Cambenzi. We have a few items on the superintendent's report. All messages, information will be delivered by some guests, 3 guests. We are going to start with Linda Winslow, the president of the MAPS Education Foundation, for her update. Thank you, Mrs. Winslow.
So I guess it gets come up here, right?
That's right.
It's hardly family. So, good evening. My name is Linda Winslow. I am currently the president of the MAPS Education Foundation. And I asked to be on the agenda tonight because I think it's really important that as a board that you have a picture of what we've been doing with in the last year. So our report is always a little bit behind, I guess you could call it, but I am going to share the information from 2003 to 2004. So that would be that school year. Our year kind of corresponds with that, so it makes it easier for us to do things. So the Education Foundation today has what I call 4 arms. So 4 arms, and those 4 arms include grants/funds, scholarships, a program called First to Finish, and the Pendle Wall. So I'm going to just give a little information about each one of those programs, and please ask questions if you have any, because we are a really important part of our community, and we actually provide lots of things to not only the students, but the staff, the community, and we're excited for that piece. So the grants and funds. So in the year that I was speaking of, 2023/24, we had 9 grant funds. And we gave out 34 grants to our staff/students/teachers. Okay, so 34, that's a huge number. Our small grant is up to $300, and it is pretty easy to apply. Okay, we wanted it to be that way because it makes it easier for people to get what they need to use that school year. We have large grants that are up to $2,500, and that takes a little more, I'll say a little more words to get what you want kind of thing, but not as difficult as a state grant or a federal grant, okay? Thank goodness. And so that's what our grant funds are for. They're for those projects. We also have 53 scholarship funds, which is kind of amazing for a small community. When we started out years ago, we had many, many less than that. So we're excited to have 53. They are not all given out every year because the donors who create those funds can choose to have it every 5 years, every 2 years, just when there's enough money, lots of different things. But we do have 53 scholarship funds. And you guys maybe know, do you have a scholarship fund? Do you all know that? Great, because it always needs to have some donations, I'll call it, to keep it to grow. So thank you to those of you who do donate to that fund. It's important, and the students that are selected for that, the criteria is set forth by the school board. So thank you. The scholarships will be awarded on May 20th this year. It's a Tuesday evening at 6:30 in the gym. So mark your calendars. We'd love to have all of you come. It's exciting. It's exciting for the students, but it's really, really exciting for the parents, okay? And everyone who's been a parent can attest to that, right? We're excited when our students are there. But it's a wonderful recognition event, and it is sponsored by the foundation. But there are many people that bring scholarships to that particular event. There are clubs in our community that create a scholarship. The Rotary Club, the Lions Club, the Kiwanis Club, those kinds of clubs are available to be part of our event. The Community Foundation has some scholarships fund that they bring to us as well. And then the donors that give to the foundation have funds set up. And they do write all their own criteria. So we don't say, oh no, you have to do what we say. We say, come on in, we'll work with you to get it to work for our students. So most of our scholarships are given directly to the students now. They do not go to a college, okay? And there's lots of reasons for that, but I won't share that necessarily today. You maybe already know those reasons. The third arm is called First to Finish, and that particular program was created, I can hardly believe this, it's our sixth graders were our first to Finish program. So they have already gone through, 5 years? Oh my gosh, they're halfway through their school years here at Marquette, halfway. So to honor that, we will be meeting with all the sixth graders at Bothwell in the middle of this month and sharing some information with them. But in the meantime, on Friday, Linda Hopper, yay, sent out through Skyward an email, I'll call it, to all the parents and guardians and families, letting them know that it's Literacy Month. April is Financial Literacy Month. And to celebrate that, the foundation has agreed that everyone who donates to their First to Finish account, not an amount, just put some money in, that the foundation will give them an additional $5. So some of you may have gotten that email if you have children in the school. So I hope everyone goes to either Range Bank or Incredible Bank. There are two partners. Put some money in those accounts. And if you're looking at me going, I don't have any children, well, maybe you have a grandchild, or look up and down your street. Who lives on your street? You just need the student's name. You can put that money in. That's pretty amazing. Now you might want to think, can those students get that money out? Not until they graduate. Okay, so upon graduation, they will be able to access their savings account. So we want to increase the graduation rate in our community to 100%. I know it's a lofty goal. So that's what our First to Finish is. We are one of only probably maybe 12 in the whole state of Michigan and maybe 50 in the whole country. So we are very fortunate to have a foundation that supports that particular program. The last thing that we do, not the very smallest, none of these are in any order here, is the Pendle Wall. And you've probably had the opportunity to walk past that wall, maybe as a student, maybe as a parent, but it recognizes someone that graduated from our school here in Marquette who did an outstanding job at just lots of things, usually some philanthropy, donations, just being a person of our community. And so those people on that wall all graduated from one of our schools. So it's amazing. Last year, there was not a person selected, but this coming year, I'm told there will be 2. So that's pretty exciting. I would encourage you, all of you, who know someone in our community who graduated from our school to submit an application. It's a wonderful honor that we can give back to our graduates. And those students really do look at that wall. And so do parents. So now I am ready to take questions. Can the audience ask questions?
Audience, no, but the board can.
Okay, so board, questions. I used to make my students say couldn't leave until they each asked me one question, I won't make you be students today, though.
So presumably you have a team?
We have a wonderful team of people, and I can read who is on our team, and I will hand these out.
And we'll leave the extras for the audience.
Our team today consists of Mike Andre, Elsa Clement, Corey Fries, Jim Johnson, Barb Kelly, Carolyn McDonald, Jackie Mahenik, Karen Ogle. Zach comes to, he's our support person often. Chuck Swanson, Zach Sturdy, myself, and Jim Johnson is not listed on here. Oh, he is listed on here. So that's our team. You probably know 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of those folks. They give up their time and their expertise, and I'm happy to have a great team. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Linda, just real quick as a reference, and I hate to put you on the spot,
Oh, you
approximately how much money was donated through local scholarships last year?
Well, we talked about that, and I think out of the foundation, it was about 117,000, but that doesn't include what comes from the school and or the support clubs, I'll call them, and the community foundation. So, you know, we keep growing, we keep adding scholarships, and the market was kind to us, and when the market's kind to us, we have more money to give. The other thing about local scholarships, and Amanda can kind of talk to this as well after when I'm gone, all the students who applied by the deadline and are qualified. So there are qualifications that the school sets forth to award scholarships and that the grant or the scholarships set forth. They've all been awarded a scholarship for the last 5 years. So this year we have 171 applicants. That's a lot. But I'm excited because that means those students are taking that time to fill out that form, ask questions, and get it submitted. So I think that committee will meet around April 16th and make their selections. The invitations will go out to the donors by paper, electronically to the parents and students.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mrs. Winslow. The Ed Foundation does amazing
you.
work, and we
I'll be
really
back.
appreciate what you all do.
Next year.
Yeah, of course, anytime. Okay, moving on in our agenda. Next up, second guest is Mr. Tony Bertucci. Mr. Bertucci is the CFO for Marisa, our local RISA, and he's here to talk a little bit about their budget.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sedgwick. So in your packet, I believe you have really everything that'll be going through tonight. But really wanted to take this opportunity to answer any questions that you may have on the RISA budget. The board is asked annually to offer a supporting resolution for our general fund budget. So I just thought I would really give you an overview, kind of talk about the details within our general fund, do some comparisons to the overall what makes up our general fund, and then run through kind of the line-by-line detail with you. So please feel free at any time to ask any questions. So the RISA operates very similarly to a local education agency such as MAPS, but also very differently. So we have a general fund, just like MAPS. We also have a capital projects fund like MAPS, but then we, as an intermediate school district, also have a special education fund. And as you're well aware as a board, there are certain things that are required to be spent out of certain funds. So our general fund is for general ISD operations, but then we run a lot of grants through the agency. So we have several grants that are for our local school districts that are run through the general fund. Some of those are the 31N mental health supports that districts receive, nutrition, education, math, and literacy coaches. CTE are some of the main ones that run through our general fund. Then we also, as a RISA, we are fiscal agent for the Department of Education, actually. We run several grants for the state, for the entire state. So those types of grants are run through our general fund as well. And then a new initiative, I guess, that the RISA is fiscal agent for, is the Talent Together program. It's a statewide initiative really to bring more educators in the classroom from really the beginning or parapro roles, those who are, essentially it's a grow your own program. How do we take care of the teacher shortage throughout the state? So we at Mark and Elgin RISA are the fiscal agent for that program for the entire state. Then our special education fund, that is predominantly staffed for the local education agencies. That's your school psychologists, social workers, physical therapists, occupational therapists, etc. It also is where we pay for staff who oversee those programs at the RISA. So that could be our directors, our supervisors, etc. But the majority of our special education funds flow back to our local school districts. So we have been fortunate enough with the passage of the additional millage for special education, we flow back nearly $10 to $11 million a year to our local school districts from the local millages that have been collected. And then the special education fund is also that fund that has those special programs. So you may be familiar with the day treatment program that we began last year. It's also where our transition program, the kind of the 19 to 26-year-olds sit. So multi-functioning fund, if you will. And then lastly, capital projects fund, very similar to the locals, used for capital outlay, building projects, etc. Because we're not able to utilize a sinking fund. So at the RISA, our current building is roughly 20 plus years old. Nothing was done to the facility for about 20 years, so we had a lot of deferred maintenance. So right now, we are undergoing kind of an annual capital outlay plan to replace those items that are kind of at the end of their operational life. So that's the overview of the three funds that make up really the RISA's financial picture. I thought since the board will be reviewing the general fund this evening, I'd kind of even break it down a little bit further. So we have this roughly $64 million pot of general fund expenditures, but how are they either connected to MAPS or not connected to MAPS or any of our other locals? So if you look at that pie chart, the biggest chunk there, the $28 million, that is grants and other programs for, I'm sorry, I'm going around this backwards. So the 28 million there is the Talent Together program. $28 million is a lot out of our $64 million. So when you look at the budget detail, when we go through the budget detail there, you will see a lot of items marked Talent Together. Those are essentially funds in and funds out. Prior to the Talent Together, prior to the RISA taking on Talent Together, our budget was much closer to the $30 million mark. That next biggest pie there, the 22.8, that is our state fiscal agent grants. Those are grants, again, that I mentioned. We do work for the Michigan Department of Education. We run programs for them. And again, that's essentially money in and money out of our general fund. We do those programs. We take on the Talent Together program. We take on these state fiscal agent grants to provide an additional revenue stream for the RISA, so we can do things for our LEAs, for our agency, that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise. A good example of that recently has been the math coaches. Literacy was a thing that the state was looking at. Before the state put any money behind math coaches, we were able to do so at the RISA. We were able to hire an individual to be able to provide those services to our locals prior to any state funding. And we're able to do that. What we try to do is say we have enough funding for this position to benefit the locals for a minimum of 5 years. We don't want to start a program and then take it away. So that's a good example of a recent commitment that we made with some of those dollars that we earned from doing this additional work. Then if you kind of continue to go around the pie chart there, the 4.8 million, those are grants for LEAs directly. So grants or flow-through funds from the general fund. So that might be CTE equipment, that would be where our math and literacy coaches are. Those are things that directly benefit our LEAs. And then that 8.4 million, that is the rest of the ISD operation. So that includes all of our operations and maintenance, the business office, the superintendent's office, all of those things that can't be attached really to any other program and aren't in any way directly connected to a local school district. Any questions on kind of the overview so far? Okay, so then the next page in your packet there, the third page, where the money goes and overview. So this really is our expenditure portion of the budget that you have before you, but broken out with additional detail. So what I tried to do here was show you how there might be some pretty big numbers in categories like other support. If you look at other support, there's a $17.1 million amount attached to that. Other support is a heading that the state of Michigan assigns those items. We are following the same accounting manual that your school district does, but because of the types of expenditures that we run through the RESA, much falls into that other category. So when we go through this, you'll see that 17.1 million, that's for our state fiscal agent grants. That function code, if you will, is where the personnel employed by those state fiscal agent grants, that's where we're required by the state to report them. So hopefully, as we go through this, you'll see how a lot of those big numbers are attached to either a fiscal agent grant or Talent Together. So beginning with instruction, first of all, I guess I should say the majority of the RESA's instructional support comes in our special education fund. So that is not something that your board reviews. It's just the piece that's connected with the general fund. So our general fund has $1.2 million in added needs instruction support. And that's for predominantly our CTE program. So that covers our CTE staff, the middle college expenditures, CTE program, equipment, those types of expenditures are what sits in our general fund. When we go into the pupil supporting services area, $1.7 million are those direct services to your students. So that's 31N, mental support, that grant, the health resource advocate or the school nurse, McKinney-Vento, that's the federal homeless program. And also I feel I should note, we at Market Elder RESA are the fiscal agent, if you will, for the UP-wide homeless effort. So we run a lot of McKinney-Vento programs and staff through the RESA, but we cover the entire Upper Peninsula. Going down in instructional support, instructional staff support, you'll see $3 million. That's for professional development like Fall EdCon that we did this year at Northern. It covers some technology consortiums, the REMC, Merit Internet, a piece of our technology director, our REMC director, again, CTE director, MTSS director, mental health coordinator, and here again we have those math consultant and literacy and there's a little bit of state fiscal agent grant in that $3 million. We go to the next line, that $18.68 million, that's all Talent Together staff. So we've got, with Talent Together, we've got a large portion that's staff, and we have a large portion that are the fees to the universities. because we pay for tuition for all of those several hundred candidates in Talent Together. So we have tuition, we have the Talent Together program costs, and then we also have the reimbursement to local school districts for the apprenticeship program. So as a candidate's moving through Talent Together, we actually, as Talent Together, pay for them when they're an apprentice teacher. So there's three large costs that are associated with Talent Together.
Can I just stop you really quick?
Sure.
So, just to confirm, the RISA is, our RISA is running the entire Talent Together program for the state?
For the state of Michigan.
How did that happen?
Yes.
Why us? There's so many huge, well, I don't need to tell you.
So our RISA so there were 7 ISDs about 2 years ago who got together and said, what are we going to do to mitigate the teacher shortage?
Right.
We were part of that discussion.
Okay.
And so those 7 ISDs banded together and said, we're going to do something. And gradually got every single ISD in the state on board. So we early on said we would be willing to be fiscal agent and support the program. And that's how
It's a very large program and
it is a
we
huge
have much
program.
larger ISDs in our state. So I
Yes.
just wondered how it came to fruition that little old Marquette Alger got something that big.
Because we were in on the ground floor.
I gotcha.
And I think another thing that's related to that, we have been fiscal agent for several of those state grants, not Talent Together, but the things that essentially now MDE literally reaches out to the RISA and says, we have this additional program, we need help running. Would you be willing to be fiscal agent for it? So we're kind of now known in that space as a responsible and very efficient fiscal agent for the state. So
So you serve in that role, RISA serves in that role as fiscal agents for multiple state programs and
Correct.
you work that money through multiple.
Correct.
That is an unknown fact by me.
All
Now
right.
I know. Thank you.
You're
That's
welcome.
Interesting.
Any other questions? Okay, then I'll keep rolling through. Support services, so next up there is general administration, just like a local school districts. That's where we're required to report the superintendent's office, any board of education expenditures. We also hold in there the carry contract, so as MAPS is one of the first that received that MTSS support through carry. Those contracts are run through that function line. And then we have some general administrative costs that are attached to Talent Together in the next line. Business support services, that $946,000 there, that's our business office, our finance office, also the receptionist at the RISA. Includes all sorts of insurances, errors and omissions insurance, cyber insurance. But then I also feel it's important to note that that's where tax fees, so the local municipalities charge us to collect taxes on our behalf. So we pay all of those townships and municipalities to collect taxes for us. And then it's also where any abated or written off taxes are required to be charged. So if we get some abated taxes, that loss of revenue actually goes on our books as an expense in the business office. Go figure. Business support, there's an additional $80,000 there for the Talent Together program. Moving on to operations and maintenance, so that includes our maintenance staff, our building utilities, building insurance, things like that. We've got an additional $65,000 in there for state fiscal agent grants. One of the programs that we have, we actually lease a building in the Lansing area for that program. As I mentioned before, the homeless program, that's the only area we have pupil transportation costs associated. We either buy gas card vouchers for families or bus passes or things like that. That's where that transportation piece comes from. When we move on to central support services, that 2.8 million there, that's our deputy superintendent. A lot of our instructional leadership is there, so director of technology, school safety coordinator, many of our administrative assistants. There's a roughly $700,000 Michigan Virtual High School Consortium contract that sits in there. Human resources, communications, legal, the remainder of our technology department, and then people accounting and state compliance and state reporting also sits in that line. We've got 2.68 million of central support services for our fiscal agent grants sitting there, $1.6 million for Talent Together, and then again, 17.1 million, as I mentioned earlier, for our state fiscal agent grants that fall in other support services. Moving on to community services, you see there's $850,000 there. Most of that is for the TriShare program. We are a fiscal agent for that program, so the money flows through there. The Great Start Collaborative, literacy dollars, some additional homeless services sit there, and then the wellness task force. Then all the way at the bottom, those outgoing transfers. So we've got $104,000 of LEA transfers, funds that we receive that we push back out to the LEAs. The biggest one there is the Medicaid C4S dollars. We as an ISD could hold those dollars. We push all of those back to our local school districts and have really done so since that program began. We also have a little bit in reimbursement for summer school programs we do by co-op. We offer funds to offer summer school. And then many of our professional development opportunities at the RESA, we reimburse your school districts for substitute teachers, substitute aides. That's where those funds are.
What is the
reported.
Medicaid C4S?
They are Medicaid dollars that we receive for essentially general education. So we receive the majority of our Medicaid dollars come from special education. These now, it's a newer-ish program that we're able to get reimbursed some funds for staff that see general ed students. $4.9 million of payments to other governmental units. A lot of that is state fiscal agent grant transfers, but then also recently the state has done some CTE equipment grants. So we have dollars that flow from us to you. GSRP programs those transfers are also part of this. Then there's also some Great Start Collaborative dollars that run in direct payments to local education agencies. Then we have $5.5 million of payments to other governmental units for Talent Together. Those are the tuition payments the apprenticeship dollars rather to the local school districts. So it's a reimbursement process. So as they pay for those apprenticeships in the local school districts, we reimburse them those costs. And then we have a $1.5 million transfer from our general fund to our capital projects fund anticipated for next year. So all of those expenditures add up to $64.2 million. You go to the overall budget that's included in your packet. I know it's a little bit small to fit on a letter sheet of paper, but you'll see essentially that number tie out in the expenditure side. Typically, that's where all the questions are on the expenditure side, but I can briefly just run through revenues. In our general fund, we receive very little local revenue. Our operating millage for the ISD general operations is only about $814,000 a year. So $814,000 out of 64 million. And then you'll see in the state grants, that's predominantly Talent Together, makes up that $37 million. Federal, that 22 million, that's mostly the one of the state fiscal agent grants. It goes from the federal government to the state to us to run the state. It's called the State Performance Plan grant. And then there are some minor fund modifications as revenue as well. So we end up with 65.3 million in revenue against 64.2 million in expenditure. I know I just gave you a lot there. Any additional questions?
How much of the federal grants are at risk?
Good question. Too soon to know right now. Most of the grants that education entities receive are forward funded, meaning they were already appropriated by Congress a year ago. The states get the funds, and then we have them, or the state has them in hand to distribute. I don't think we really know yet. Many of the federal programs that the federal Department of Education distributes to school districts, like Title I or IDEA special education dollars, those programs existed prior to the creation of the Department of Education. So we received those funds through other mechanisms before, and that's what we believe would transpire in the future. However, there is so much in play right now, it's really anybody's guess. I mean, Title I existed before the Department of Education, but we have also heard that there could be massive cuts to Title I. So none of that really has been set in any form of stone yet.
So is it your opinion that the districts like MAPS could spend that money and not be reimbursed?
Not in this current fiscal year. So the Title I, Title II allocations that districts have received, the state of Michigan already has those funds. The only funds that I've seen districts possibly get clawed back are if districts did not spend their what are the funds, like the COVID dollars.
98C.
Yes, the ESSER dollars. If districts had asked for an extension to the original time frame, those funds may be clawed back. But as far as title, it is the belief of those of us in the business world right now, those funds are safe. Those have already been sent to the states, those have been allocated, and we've not heard anything about possible clawback. Next year, I wouldn't plan on fully expending my title dollars if we have title, right? There's so much up in the air right now. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you for the clarification on
You're
those. So I just wanted to say I appreciate, I think last year, if memory serves, we had this presented and it was quite a bit less than what was presented here, which this was offered up a lot of excellent information, comparative, so it's much appreciated. Even though I know our vote is largely ceremonial, but just a couple of quick questions.
Sure.
Well, first, a quick comment. I did have, just wanted to mention, I did have some recent exposure to the middle college program. Was really impressed. So thought that was really a cool program. Payments to other government units, trails.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a program or is that a?
It's an acronym. I'm not sure off the top of my head what the Trails program is. It's
Social emotional
I
learning.
was going to say it's a health program, social emotional. Thank you.
Thank you. In regards to, and this might have been mentioned, and I apologize if I missed it, but the out of the millage that was passed recently, do you know approximately what MAP's share that is, or has that been determined at this point?
Good question. It's kind of a moving target. So I can't tell you off the top of my head right now what MAPS' share of the current millage is, but right now every single district is 100% fully funded for special education. So we are reimbursing you the maximum amount possible out of that fund.
I can tell you, before the millage, we had about a $2 million shortfall. We're now whole. We're about 40% of the millage, so 40% of it is $5 million, I believe, for the millage, and we're $2 million of that.
So MAPS is receiving approximately $2 million.
At least.
Well, that was at least from the millage, right, about $2 million, because we had the shortfall and essentially had that wiped out.
Okay.
So that, and is that schedule, I mean, do you anticipate that being a fairly level amount, or is that?
So what our goal is to continue to try to fully reimburse our local school districts. We take all of the revenue that each individual school district receives for special education, subtract that from their overall special education expenditures, and reimburse the rest.
Okay.
So, I mean, as long as the overall expenditures RESA-wide don't exceed the funding, we hypothetically could continue to reimburse fully. Last year, however, as an example, I think our overall expenditures in special education RESA-wide increased by nearly $2 million. So you know, our revenue, the taxable value doesn't generate an increase of $2 million annually. So we anticipate for the next couple of years being able to fully fund, and then it will just be a sheer percentage. So now we have enough funds to reimburse all districts 92% of special education. Does that make sense?
Yep, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then also on the millage too, the .2030 for homestead and non-homestead, is that millage the same for homestead and non-homesteaded properties?
The operating millages.
Operating
yes.
millages?
Mhm.
Okay, all right. Thank you. No, and again, thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Very thorough. Thank you very much, Mr. Bertucci. Really appreciate you coming.
Do you need me for any, I see later on in the agenda.
I'll leave that up to the board. Do you need Mr. Bertucci to stick around for any more questions? Looks like you're all set. Have a
All
great
right,
night.
thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Mr. Bertucci.
Our third and final guest for the superintendent report is Mr. Vanderscaff, our auxiliary services director, who's here to talk about our bus fleet. We had a change in plans after a recent inspection, and thank you, Mr. Vanderscaff. We started the day today very early, and you're here with me late, so thank you.
Yep, no worries. Thank you. Thanks for the intro as well, Zach. Like I said, this is the transportation hat right now. So with our recent state inspection, 4 buses were deemed non-serviceable to be used in our bus fleet. That's on top of 3 from last year over year, so we're down 7 there. We did have 2 replacements that are back in the fleet from last year's purchases, but the 2 purchases that were approved in January are not in-house yet. Won't be in-house until after the school year. So right now that leaves us down, it's the math there, 5 buses from where we were a year ago, or a little over a year ago. So that makes us a little tight, as Mr. Ingles, the athletic director, could attest to it. He asked for 2 buses for a recent track event. We could give him 1, and that was keeping 1 bus in reserve for any eventuality on our 14 afternoon bus runs. So that is kind of why I'm here. That's the long and the short of it. But the recommendation in the packet is to purchase a bus that should have relatively immediate availability. That's a 2020 model year. It's a used bus with approximately 55,000 miles on it, coming out of service in the lower Michigan area, so it should meet all of our Michigan specific requirements. So that is also a factor in the recommendation to say, hey, the gap, the squeeze is for the spring sports season essentially. Right now, that leaves us with effectively 4 spare buses, one being a sort of designated trip bus, which is a new bus, 24B, and then we have 3 older buses. Unfortunately, one of those 3 older buses is also at the shop and probably will be for another couple weeks. So that's where we get to instances where we're turning back a trip. Because as you know, if you're running 14 buses, stuff happens. In that instance, chipped windshield from a mining truck going the opposite direction, cracked out, and you have to get that replaced before you can put it back in service. So, like I said, we've had some tightness on the busing side. That's why we're here to recommend another bus purchase. And if you look at the age of some of these older buses, I think we can kind of anticipate, potential for another 3 being red tag next year. So that's kind of another portion of the thought process here. 3, potentially 4 of those. Bus 10, that's probably the year it was in service. Bus 13 and 13A would all be somewhat likely, a fair, reasonable likelihood of not passing inspection next year. Does anyone have any questions? As we have the quote for that 2020 model year bus, and I do have the other competing quote. It's from New Mexico and it had seat belts in it. It would be kind of a little bit longer turnaround and also some added cost on the delivery from Tulsa to here. So a little bit less immediate and also 2 model years older. And it's usually kind of the age of the bus that's killing us, less so than the engines and the transmissions that are going on in them. They just kind of tend to rot.
Am I correct that you've got about 60% of the warranty on this bus that you're recommending to purchase?
It would be on the powertrain warranty, that's correct. I don't think there's going to be any quote-unquote bumper-to-bumper warranty on this one. 2020, it's past that.
Do you encounter problems with the powertrain typically, or?
Not typically. I'd say the biggest thing would be your diesel particulate type of emissions equipment is probably what's going on. One of those older buses that got red tagged did have its transmission go out, but that was from 2007, so that's an 18-year-old bus. But the other ones are still running fine with 200,000 miles on them.
So we had planned on purchasing 2, we're asking to purchase a 3rd as a result of having 2 additional buses red tagged during the last inspection and forecasting that we may have to do the same thing next year instead of budgeting for 2, budgeting for 3 to make up that difference.
We can sell these used buses, or once they fail state, like, what do you do here? What do we do with these buses?
We scrap them for what we can get, which is a pretty nominal amount. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Like nothing?
We usually put them out to bid first, and generally we don't receive any bids.
Right.
As you can imagine. So then, yes, then we put them out to scrap, and I think generally we get, depending on the scrap value at the time, $1,000, $1,200. Not a huge sum of money.
No.
So if you're one of those people who wants to retrofit a school bus and travel the country,
That is me.
you have an opportunity.
Look at that. This is perfect. Great timing.
How much do you typically save purchasing used over new?
So we've seen a significant increase in the cost of a new school bus. When I started with the district in 2001, school buses were going for about $90,000 at that time, and now they're in excess of $130,000 to $140,000. So just in that short time, we've seen a significant cost increase to a new bus.
Is there any thought that tariffs are going to impact the price of buses?
The tariffs are targeting foreign makers. I don't know the composition of the buses that we're purchasing, whether they're all built internally in the U.S. or if they're sourced with parts outside of the U.S. But I think generally most manufacturers now are sourcing with international parts. So I would think that yes, tariffs would have an impact on future pricing.
Would that change your recommendations on when to acquire the next round of buses?
Perhaps, if the board so desired, we could look at the feasibility of purchasing additional buses at this time rather than delaying until next year. As far as purchasing a new bus goes, we generally purchase new buses based off the competitive bid of the UP-wide consortium. Those bid prices are generally only good for a certain amount of time, and I want to say it's March. So we would be beyond that. We'd have to go out for bid on our own outside of the consortium, which generally UP-wide, we have a little bit better bargaining power when we go through the consortium. So that'd be one consideration.
Any other questions for Mr. Vanderscaff? Thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate your support. And with that, concludes the superintendent report. If you have no other questions, turn it back over to you, Mrs. Cambenzi.
Thank you. Moving on to approving the consent agenda, which would include the minutes of the regular meeting of March 17th, 2025, and the minutes of the board retreat of March 18th, 2025.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Zadudnik, support by Mrs. Klipp. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Comments from the public? I don't believe we have any. You guys want to make any comments? Good? All right. Moving on to new business. Consider adoption of the resolution for local district consideration of Marissa's 2025-2026 budget.
I'll make a motion that we consider the adoption of the resolution for local district consideration of Maurice's 2025-2026 budget as presented.
Support. Okay, motion made by Mrs. Klipp, support by Mrs. Maddox-Smith. Do we have any further comments or questions about Maurice's budget? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Consider purchase of school bus from Midwest Transit Equipment pursuant to recommendation.
Make a motion to approve the purchase of the school bus from Midwest Transit Equipment based on the recommendation provided.
Support.
Okay. Motion made by Mr. Zadudnik, support by Mr. Smith. Any further comments or questions regarding the bus purchase? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Let's see. Approve board member attendance in online board member certification, CDA classes through MASB. Is that something that I need to recuse myself from since I'm on the
This is
MASB?
more of a generic motion to cover the new policy, if I understand correctly, Mrs. Hopper.
Kristen's question is, since she's on her board, I
Oh.
don't think it would hurt to recuse yourself.
Okay.
Good point, yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so I would entertain a motion to approve the board member attendance for online classes.
I'll make a motion to approve board member attendance and online board certification classes through MASB.
Support. All right, motion made by Mrs. Klipp, support by Ms. Thomas. All those in favor? Aye. Oh, not me. Not me. Any opposed? No. One recusal, that would be me. So the motion passes. Consider reimbursement of expenses not already covered by MASB of Board President Cambenzi for attendance at the MASB Spring Institute. So the Spring Institute is at Mackinac Island this year. So MASB would cover, since I am on their board, a good chunk of my classes and such. So this would be for lodging and other expenses.
I make a motion we consider reimbursement for expenses not already covered by MASB for our board president Cambenzi for attendance at the Spring Institute.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mrs. Maddox Smith, support by Mrs. Clip. Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And then probably should recuse myself in that one too. So then we'll do that. Okay, moving on to board member comments. Start with Mr. Smith.
Well, I appreciate the information for RISA. I'll have to confess that the acronyms are still foreign to me, and I'm just beginning to learn what some of those are all about, but I think I was able to get about 80% of it, so I appreciate that. I guess I am concerned a little bit about the impact at the federal level on some of our expenses coming up. And I'm sure that Mr. Sedgwick is also concerned about that, as well as Mr. Lampman. So maybe that's something we'll be able to get some additional insights on as we begin to move forward in the year. But the potential for increasing our expenses is real and probably something that we want to begin to take a look at.
Ms. Thomas.
Thank you to our speakers this evening, and no other comment.
Mrs. Maddox Smith.
Pretty much echoing everybody else. I agree with Mr. Smith. Looking into expenditures coming up is something I think we should be looking at. And thanks to our speakers, so much information. Thanks for breaking it down to us.
Mrs. Clay.
No further comment?
Mr. Zududnik.
No additional comment, thank you.
Board President comments, so just echoing everyone else. Thank you very much to our speakers. Announcements and other meetings. April 18th, 2025, Good Friday holiday, no school. April 21st, 2025, board meeting, 5:30 p.m. at the Alternative High School in the Family Room. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Zududnik, support by Ms. Thomas. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.